Hi there, I'm Katie Allender, author of Bad Girls Don't Die. Welcome to AuthorMix, which is a web series we've created to let our readers be the fly on the wall as some of our favorite authors get together and talk about life and books and all sorts of fun things. And now here are the people who were kind enough to join me today. At the far end we have Margaret Stoll and Cami Garcia, who are the authors of Beautiful Creatures. We have Melissa De La Cruz, who's the author of the Blue Blood series, and Cecil Castellucci, whose most recent book is Beige, but she has like hundreds of books. Okay, so we're gonna talk high school. Oh. I want to know, like, who were you in high school? Like, what person were you?
We want to know who you were in high school.
Yeah, you're the mystery.
You can't. You know what? You can't handle the
I'm turning it on you.
I can't handle the
Okay,
truth.
who was I in high school? Well, I went to an art school. So I was like whoever I wanted to be. It sounds sort of like crazy and utopian, but like I really just was myself. I was like the smart girl, but at my school it was like everybody was smart. You know, I wore what I wanted to wear. Occasionally that included costumes and like my Star Trek uniform.
Nice.
And I went through a Catwoman phase. Yeah, I would go around meowing at people and wearing my cat suit. And I actually look at it now and I'm like, I cannot believe my parents let me out of the house in like this skin-tight bodysuit.
I can't believe you had a skin. Where'd you even get a skin-tight bodysuit?
Lerner, New York.
Oh,
it was the most expensive item of clothing I'd ever owned. It was like $45.
Yeah, Lerner.
And I saw it and I went home and I told my stepmother, like, you have to come back to the mall with me. There's this thing I need. And she saw it and she was like, I don't know about that. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm Catwoman. So anyway, that was an interesting phase of my existence. But my school was just really cool and really fun, and
everybody was friends.
Does this sound like your school? No, not so much.
I wonder if it's an arts high school thing, because I mean, I also went to the High School of Performing Arts in New York City.
Did you have the cool pink hair?
I did. I had my senior year. It was half blonde. It was kind of the opposite. It was like half blonde up here and then half black down here and then blonde down the bottom.
Wow.
And then it was also like sort of green, had green in it and stuff. Yeah, I was a little punky.
We need photos.
My hair was like brown. Occasionally I would dye it black, and that would last for like a week.
I had the Flock of Seagulls haircut. It was almost exactly like this hair, except for this side was really, really long, and this side was completely shaved.
The one thing that was so great about LaGuardia was that you could be whoever, you could be exactly who you were, and nobody looked twice at you. Nobody would have looked twice at anybody in a cat suit or, you know, Star Trek or anything, because I used to go to school every single day in like 1950s cocktail dresses, and literally one day the head of the drama department was like, Cece, where are you going? I had read this quote that Joan Crawford had like said, and she basically had said, if you act as though your life is a party, then it always will be one. And I was like, well, clearly you have to be dressed for that. You know, but I think the one thing about being in an art school is that it made me fascinated with high schools that had regular experiences.
Yeah.
And I would be curious for you guys to answer this for me. It's like, because I didn't have a regular high school experience, I always felt like people who had a regular high school experience had something to rebel against, because, you know, the status quo of the cheerleaders and the jocks and the this and the that.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
absolutely, like packages in a section of the grocery aisle. So split up.
Right.
Of you stand here, you stand here, you
Totally.
stand here.
And tell us about how you looked in high school. Who were you in high school?
I like to think of myself as like the cool girl from the nerds. Like I was like nerd cool. I was like I was like the AP tri-school building AP.
So you were the queen of the nerds.
I was the queen of the nerds.
I got
Let's put it that way. I mean, you know, we can dispute that, guys, but that's how I felt. And I was fringe. I had some fringe. You know, I had friends. I had Grove friends. So I was like Grove fringe. But then I was also on the journalism staff. And so I wrote like a Grove expose of what it takes to be cool and stand in the Grove.
So what you're saying is you're an informant.
I was an informant. I was like, you have to have a lot of ammunition on your belt, and you have to have 25 bangles, you know, here, because it was the 80s, and I got a lot of flack for my Grove expose. And I think that was my first experience with writing and getting in trouble for what you wrote and taking responsibility for it, which I found to be really, really liberating. I was from a really religious conservative family. So for me to go and kind of like have a voice within my peers and like say, you know, I'm gonna call you on what you're doing because I see you people, like, and then stand outside that. That was like a high for me, and then I think that's what I'm still doing. I mean, in a certain way.
She is mostly still doing that.
You go on. There was a lot of peroxide. That's all I'm gonna say.
There is no peroxide in my life, but I did let my best friend, Kathy, cut my hair. And she shaved one side, and then the other side was really long. And my mom cried and said, "You look like a boy." And I wore a lot of black, but not in a gothy way. I actually didn't wear, it sounds odd. I mean, I wore clothing. I didn't wear an excessive amount of clothing, but it was all black. I had lots of black tank tops, even if it was winter, and small black skirts. But I did wear either combat boots or sneakers with them. I didn't look very girly. But I was really short and small, so that works against you. So I guess, you know, it did kind of make me look girly. I wrote all the time. I wrote poetry all the time. I have buckets, and it's on my blog. So embarrassing. I actually scanned some of it as a dare, so it's on my blog.
You guys do a lot of things based on dares.
We do. But that is definitely the core of who I am. Like, I'm not the kind of girl who can, like, I take a dare.
We can't walk away from a double dog dare. That's why we were.
So I could dare you to like go to my house and clean up my kitchen.
I don't think kind of dare.
No, that's not in my skill set.
Yeah, I was.
You could at least try.
I was smart, but I made sure no one knew. I actually pretended that I needed a math tutor because I had a huge crush on this guy who played on a sports team at my high school. I still do.
Remain nameless?
Yes, I still don't want anyone to know who it was, and he offered to help me, clearly out of the goodness of his heart, because nothing came of it. And I would sit and write poetry like all morning in my notebooks until he would come down the hall, and then I would pretend to look busy. And then he would find me, and we would sit, and I would stare at him, and he would teach me all like the math that I already knew from class. And I would pretend like I didn't know it, and then I would go home and write more poetry about him.
Girl power. Melissa?
There was a lot of poetry writing as well.
Oh.
I went to a small all-girls school. There were only 40 other girls in my class, most of whom were debutantes. My family had moved to San Francisco from Manila, so I was an immigrant. I was a scholarship kid. I was 14, so there was all this culture shock, and then, you know, just kind of rich people shock. It was just really hard to be in that school. We were in South San Francisco, so my dad would drive, you know, an hour in. I think when we first started, we lived in Vallejo, so we would drive 2.5 hours to go to the school.
Oh my gosh.
And, you know, and everybody else lived in Pacific Heights, and, you know, their parents were whatever socialites, and, you know, and a lot of that experience went into Blue Bloods because there was such an odd school where everybody knew each other, and they came from these families, and
they
were the Blues, and you know, and the funny thing was prom. You know, I went and bought like this big ball gown with a big butt bow, you know, like totally all decked out, and you go to prom, and all the girls are wearing like sweaters and skirts because like they're so over prom, you know, and it's like, oh, I didn't get the memo.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Let's wrap things up now. We're going to remind our viewers that you can find our books in libraries and bookstores, and you can find out more information about us at the AuthorMix website and on our own websites. And you can sign up also for fun giveaways of books and other great things. And stay tuned for future episodes. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Tell us really quickly about what your next project is.
Our next book is the sequel to Beautiful Creatures. It's called Beautiful Darkness, and it comes out this fall.
I'm doing 2 books in the Blue Blood series called Keys to the Repository, which is a companion book, and Misguided Angel, which is book 5.
I have 2 books coming out this summer in August. Rose Sees Red, which is a YA novel on Scholastic, and a picture book, my first picture book for little kids. It's called Grandma's Gloves on Kindle.